Kevin Howell is from Anchor Group, a New York-based strategic solutions company. They work closely with clients to develop proven growth strategies, implement processes and solutions to enable operational excellence. Because we're also looking at the idea of digital work, because we're also looking at the idea of data, Kevin has proposed a presentation for arts organizations to understand the impact and the potential in data. His presentation, which is the feature presentation for today, for one of the featured presentations, for today, is called Grow with Digital. Without further ado, I invite Kevin Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Ormsby, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. I think it's a real great opportunity to be talking to artists. I tried to dance a few times, but that wasn't very fruitful. It was interesting though, because I really love dancing. But I grew up in Jamaica, and as a young man in Jamaica, dancing was kind of taboo. Kevin was one of those liberated, free-spirited from the beginning, so he was able to really chase his dream as a dancer. But anyway, I believe that the world of business is a dance, and it's understanding your craft, it's understanding where you're trying to go, what you're trying to achieve, and putting the things in place, whether it be your training, your ongoing interaction, engagement. I know this is an artistic conference, but I'm going to pivot a little bit to dance to really drive your success. And so I want to talk about Grow with Digital. Kevin spoke a little bit about my firm, so I'll flip over everything and I'll go into what we're going to be covering today. So today we're going to be covering 5 items. Quick background of what my presentation will be about and the model. A few of your colleagues would have done the assessment that was sent out pre the session. And through the assessment, I was able to glean a lot about the different organizations that have completed the assessment. And I think the information will be very insightful. I want to talk about the ACE model, and the ACE model is our way of helping businesses. And it's interesting because sometimes when I think about the arts, I don't think about business, and I'm afraid to say business and arts because I don't know what artists will say. And so I believe that if you're going to build your arts endeavor, you have to think business. And it's not the natural place that you sit, but it is the place that will ensure that whatever vision you have as an artist will come to fruition. And without business, a business structure and a business mindset, and I like to pivot to the conversation of social impact. And so in order for you to do that type of social engagement and that impact, and for it to be long-lived, you have to engage business principles in the conversation. So we'll talk a little about the demographics of the people who responded to the survey, and then I'm going to go through the survey results, and just to kind of give you a sense of the importance, as it were, of the tenets of my presentation. So when people think about digital, oftentimes they run to online, right? They run to, I'm going to get my LinkedIn page and my Instagram page, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to just go talk to anybody who wants to listen. And what is critical for artists to understand that not everybody out there is your customer. Not everybody out there cares about what you're doing or even is interested in engaging in what you are doing. And so that means that you, as an artist, have to identify your customers. Who are your customers that are going to help you to grow and drive your artistic endeavors and your programs? And so you want to understand your customers, but you also want to understand the network of talent that you can pull from to drive the success of your organization. Again, are you adequately unlocking relationship capital? So again, artists might feel that the only relationship capital that they need to engage with are other artists. But in order for you to sustain and fuel your organization, oftentimes you will have to have corporate relationships. You will have to have individuals who can support you with building the business behind the kind of framework, the artistic framework that you are driving. You would have to have community partners that you are engaging with, so your message can be connected with the audiences that you want to connect your messaging. And so relationship capital is very, very important in funding, right? And it's from a centerfold. A lot of times artists feels, oh, I am doing something good and there's no real value in it, and I am not really a product, but I am a product. And so you're kind of broken between two worlds. The world of, can I say my art is a product, and or is it just an expression? Because if I call it a product, then it's not going to have the same value and the same essence that it should have. And I don't believe that, right? Because I believe in order for you to sustain that expression, and in order for the longevity of that expression to be shared, then you will have to be thinking about funding. The question is, what are your funding sources? Is it just grants and donations? Or are you packaging your art so you can sell it? And you can potentially sell it while you're asleep. Like, why do you need to go into the conversation of data and digital and getting followers if you're not going to sell them anything? It's might seem counterproductive and counterintuitive, but artists have to believe that what they have is worth somebody paying for. And you shouldn't be asking or begging somebody to pay for your art. You should fashion it, you should package it, and let people purchase it, because at the end of the day, you want it into their homes and into their life, because your art into their lives is going to make them so much better. How effective are you leveraging data to grow your program? So when you think about your customers, your talent, when you think about your relationship, all of those touch points are giving you data every day. It's giving you data, right? So understanding customer sentiments, understanding when you do a performance and you are launching, what is it that the customer is looking for, understanding what your patrons and your donors are looking for. It doesn't happen by virtue of just how you feel. It has to happen by virtue of what you are documenting over time and spotting the trends. And based upon the trends, those trends inform your decisions. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm an artist. Why do I have to think about that? You have to, because if you don't, then you will do your art, but you will never, ever really grow your art. And I believe that artists want to grow their art. And I will hope that that's the desire. Quickly, we have a model, right? We have a model that it's a business model called the Rose model. And the model essentially pivots around revenue generation. So where are you getting money from? How are you getting that money? How long does that money take, that cash take to come to you? And it's an understanding that is going to be very, very important for every artistic corporation or individual who is an artist, who is working as a solo entrepreneur, or just dancing or painting or whatever the kind of area of art you are engaged with. Operations. A big part of your operation is understanding your people. The biggest part from a people perspective of any company are the performers, right? But that's not the only people in the company. You have so many other people. You have your administration, you have your patrons, you have your customers are people. You have so many layers to the people conversation that you now need to nurture that, and you need to find what is it that your people need, all those different people buckets, and satisfy it. Technology becomes the engine that drives data collection and data reporting, infrastructure, policies and procedures, how you go about doing stuff. I mean, if every time you're trying to do a performance, you have to start from scratch in terms of building that program, and you have to go through every time a new brainstorming process about every single element of that administration, you have a problem. So SOPs, standard operating procedures, are going to be critical to how you manage your organization, not just for the near term or the midterm, but for the long term, because I would imagine you want to be around for the long term. Innovation, you got to think about what type of innovation can you engage with as an artist? Mergers, IPOs, divestitures. I mean, it's time that we start running our arts infrastructure like real businesses, that we can engage in so many other kind of tangential / complementary services for our businesses. Succession planning, right? Exit planning, retirement. As a single artist working your business, who maybe that business is just you, how do you ensure that you are thinking about all the things that makes for a great kind of universe, as it were? So let's talk about the philosophy. The core philosophy of any good business, that's what you are running as an artist. For those who have a business, whether it be a sole proprietorship or a corporation or a not-for-profit, it is a business. At the end of the day, a not-for-profit may put its profit back into developing programs. Similarly, a for-profit business will put its profit to expand its operation, expand its product line, expand into new markets. So at the end of the day, every business, whether you're a not-for-profit, a solo entrepreneur, or you are a corporation, you have to be thinking about your plan, your process, execution, tracking, reporting. And after you report, you don't stop there, you fix it. But after you fix it, you want to refresh your system. We've used computers, and we see an email comes in and somebody says to you, oh, there's an email, check your mailbox. And you're like, no, but I don't see any. But then you press the refresh button and the email comes, right? So that's when it comes to your business or your activities. You want to make sure that the best practices that you're learning at every phase in the business life cycle are being refreshed. And you start the planning process over and over again. And what does that do? It results in a perfection of your strategy and a perfection of the way how you do stuff. And it results in success. So I'm running a little fast. I'm going to breathe a little bit and I'm going to come back. So we did an assessment with several of the businesses here, and we realized that from a demographic perspective, 3 organizations answered the survey. We sent it out to about 12 or 13 organizations. All of them have less than 50 employees. All of them have over 10 years experience or 10 years of running the operation. And they all fell in the $100,000 to $1.5 million revenue or operating budget range, right? So what did we learn, right? So we did an assessment. The assessment was called Grow with Digital, and we covered a few topics. We covered information technology, digital readiness, customer optimization, structure and governance, talent and member optimization, risk management, and sustainable growth model. So those are the things that we cover in the assessment. I think there was about 200 questions, and it would take you about an hour and a half, 2 hours to do it. And you might say, why do I want to spend so long to do this assessment? What's the point? But what we learned from the exercise was really, really interesting. So within the context of these buckets that I highlighted earlier, you have specific areas of the business. For instance, customer. We're looking at contract management. How are you managing your contract? Customer assessment. How are you assessing your customers? Do you know your customers? Do you know where your customers go? Do you know what the customers buy? Do you know when they buy art? Right? Do you know when your customers and your patron engage with art? The life cycle or the lifeline or the lifetime of a customer, how long it is. Is a customer with you for 2 years, for 2 seasons, for 3 seasons, or for your entire journey? And how do you deal with those customers from the lens through which they interact and engage with you? Customer acquisition, customer retention. Then going all the way over here to risk management, we look at risk assessment, risk management, and risk mitigation. And you might ask yourself the question, why does an artist needs to know these things? And I am saying that any art organization is a business, and a business needs to understand all of these fundamentals, because these fundamentals invariably helps the business to be sustained and to be sustainable. And so I want to kind of highlight one little phrase. Business success cannot be by happenstance. Design it. You have to design the success of your organization. Whatever you are doing, whatever area of art that you are, discipline of art you're a part of, you have to design it. And design it really means you have to pay attention to the things that I highlighted earlier. So participants ratings. So on the right here, we have a rating scale. And there were 3 participants that essentially did the assessment. And what I realized, and I expected it, I realized that the organizations were very, very structured, right? The average for structure was 4.11 out of 5. Organizations are structured. And I was very not surprised based upon the kind of Canadian system and how structured the Canadian system is. It actually was reflective in the numbers, right? And so we had 3 participants that participated in the session, and the top was 4.67, the lowest was 3.67, but the average was 4.11 out of 5. So that's an A, that's an 80+%, right? So let's go over to customer. The average was 2.93 out of 5, 2.93. And so you ask yourself the question, what are these businesses doing or not doing in light of managing their customer relationships? And that's something that we could get into the detail behind that. But let me go on to the next. Digital readiness. COVID is fresh in everybody's brain. Everybody's on social media, all of that great stuff. But it was still 3.33 out of 5. I mean, not bad, but still a lot of work there to be done, right? Then participant rating in sustainable growth model. In this part of the exercise, what we wanted to see is our arts organization leveraging their donor base, leveraging their grants, but also expanding their businesses outside of the grant and donor and patron universe, and trying to kind of attach the universe to for-profit focus in terms of services that they're providing. And I know you don't talk profit, you talk surplus. I'm an accountant by training, and I understand the distinction between a not-for-profit and a for-profit in terms of the representation of the financial statement. But the essence of who a business is always profit. Whether you put that profit back into programs or you put that profit in the owner's pocket, it's always about profit, right? Because that drives sustainability. Talent optimizer and member optimization, we looked at that. The average there was 3.07 out of 5. Average, there's a lot of work. We had as low as 2.4 for one organization. Then we had information technology. This was a weak spot across the infrastructure. You cannot become digital and you cannot be excited about digital if you don't have the basics of security and the basics of an information security policy. Because at the end of the day, when you start putting your data online and you start open up your organization to external forces, and when your employees are at home working, your system is vulnerable. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. 1.93 was the average. And then we had risk management. There was a lot of focus on risk mitigation, but not a lot of focus on there was a lot of focus on risk management, but not a lot of focus on risk planning, right? And so it's like at the end, you're mitigating, you're fixing the problems, you're covering the problems when they come, but you're not thinking about it on the forefront. And I think that's where some of the lowest scores came. So this is more of, so that was a ranking for the participants. And then this over here is the overall scores for the different section cumulatively. So cumulatively, where you see red and orange, those are the low points across the board. So it's customer assessment, contract management, customer lifetime assessment. That a lot of work is done there. A little better on the customer acquisition and retention practices, but still way below where you should be as an organization. And then if we come over here, we have tracking in terms of information technology, and vendor management was an issue, and security and training and user access management. Basically, entire kind of security and technology landscape needs some work. And then over here, risk assessment wasn't a big thing, right? Risk management was okay. I mean, but risk mitigation, you were doing it. But we need this number based upon our methods. If you're not 75 and over, you're positioned for stagnation. And if you're below 60, you are positioned for loss, which means that a couple of years from now, if government decides they're going to pull monies from the artistic kind of landscape, and you're not going to get the grants from through SIPAMA, or you're not going to get the support from the government, you die. You die. And you might be thinking, oh, that's cool, we'll figure it out. But no, you got to start planning now. You got to start planning now. And a big gap is here. You got to understand your customer. You got to understand who is it that you're selling your art to. How do they buy art? When do they buy art? And how do I package my art to sell them, right? And then over here, obviously technology. And then there was a weakness on strategic talent relationship and patron management. Again, most of this was below par, but we had some strong areas. Revenue management, grant and donor management seemed to be a good thing. Talent acquisition was not a bad thing, but overall, the total score was 56. Your total score needs to be 75 on average. So we got work to do, right? And then this is just a further breakdown of because the thing about it is our assessment are built in layers. On the top, you have kind of the overarching concept. Let me go back, trying to go. So on the top, you have the overarching concept, which is grow with digital. but then you have the kind of subcontext, but then you have the next layer down, and then you have the next layer down, right? So really what we've gone out and do is we've gone out to understand business needs and how business win, and we've put it in the box, right? We've put it in the box. So through this exercise, if you are able to do this exercise and you get a report, you will be able to assess where you are, and then you'll be able to prioritize the things that makes a difference to your organization and the things that drive your organization or will drive your organization to the next level. I don't know if there are questions. I know it was 50 minutes. There was a lot of information, and you're like, oh my God, where did this guy come from? I would be open to any questions that you might have if the moderator will permit me and you to ask questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Most definitely. We have about 5 minutes, so if anyone has any questions, you can definitely drop them in the chat and I'll ask Kevin the questions. You're touching on some really interesting points in ways in which maybe arts organizations never thought of their practice as a business or their practice around understanding the data. What's interesting for me is the components that are around the idea of understanding the audiences and understanding the, as you say, customers. Who are your customers and who are participating and or enacting with your work? It's really, really beautiful for me to put you after something around sectoral change, because I feel that understanding the sector and the way in which the sector is working is also what you're amplifying here in space. So thank you so much for that. Any questions?
No problem. A pleasure, Mr. Ormsby.
All right. I see a question here. It says, how will it be used going forward to support arts organizations, especially BIPOC organizations?
It's interesting.
I should say, how can it be used? Because that was never, the model was never, it was to talk about data and understanding data for organizations. But how can it be used in your mind for supporting IBPOC organizations?
Well, we pushed the assessments out ahead of the session so that every participant would have been given the opportunity to do the assessment and then get a summarized report of where they are as an organization. And they can now determine internally how they position their organizations around the information that was extracted through the assessments. So really, but I also believe that it's an opportunity for SIPAMO and the artistic infrastructure to really support artists and artist organizations through more kind of extensive sessions to really kind of delayer and declutter the imagination as it pertains to business management.
Thank you. Here's another question. It says, will Kevin be offering this as a series of workshops for artists via SIPAMO in the future? Like I mentioned in the chat, I said, if you are interested in doing the assessment, send SIPAMO an email and I will try to move that forward. It was specific to the gathering this time around, but understand that there might be a need for the community to work further with Kevin as program manager. I can see if there is the financial capacity to do so. So there's a question here with 2 minutes to go. There's a dynamic with Black organizations servicing Black community members who cannot afford or expect free services. So how can our artist business sustain without grants, etc.? Do you have any thoughts around where the sort of Black arts organizations understanding for-profit infrastructures and not-for-profit infrastructures to align at their overall financial sustainability? Any thoughts on that?
So I don't think that arts organization need to stop getting grants. You should get grants, right? You should get people's sponsorship dollars, but you also need to start thinking about how do you package the art. So Netflix, for instance, is an artist platform. A lot of alternative cinematography exists on Netflix, and it's artists who build those things, and they're making money from their product, right? You think about online now, what is it that you can sell to a specific market? Like for instance, if you're a painter, oftentimes I'm doing corporate sessions and I need images and I don't want stock photos, right? I don't want to think that I go on everybody's website and everybody's document and see. I want information or imagery that essentially depict something different and emanates something that makes me feel good about my presentation and make the persons who I'm going to be presenting to feel great about my presentation. How are you selling that? I mean, oftentimes artists are so attached to their art that they don't feel that they can multiply and give it to multiple people, because in their mind, if I print it, then I'm going to devalue my artistry. Is that the case? Similarly, one of the things that I've discussed on several occasions with several of my colleagues who are dancers was corporate. Sell to corporate. You talk about diversity. You talk about teamwork. You talk about movement and space. How do you package your art so you can bring it to a corporate entity and say, hey, I can do a training for your managers, and that training is going to bring out these skills: teamwork, confidence, initiative, and you wrap that around your art and you put a bow on it and you go present it, right? So it's expanding yourself from the stage.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And I love that end about expanding yourself from the stage. I think there's many things to understanding the sector, business of the arts, business of the work that we do in the arts, and then using that as a way of generating revenue, but also sustainability moving forward. I want to thank you for your participation.